Are you finally ready to experience epic love, ecstatic sex, and profound intimacy? Join me here on the Sex, Love, and Relationship podcast with myself, your host, Joanna Intara, the intimacy alchemist for the essential conversations on how to bring consciousness and deep resourcing into the heart of the messy, vulnerable complexities that partnership, love, sex, and disconnection bring up, so that you can have all that you need, deserve, and desire. These conversations cover the ground that makes this sweet intimacy truly possible, and this time do it consciously. You're in for engaging soul conversations where we dive right into the exact alchemy of heart, connection, and of course, lovemaking that make everything about how to have it simple, clear, and oh, so good. Haven't you been wanting this? Well, here it is, and here we are. Well, hello, welcome, and here we are. I am Joanna Intara, your intimacy alchemist host for the Sex, Love, and Relationship podcast. I'm so glad you're here. It has been a hot minute since I have recorded a podcast. And the main reason for that is I have been really gathering potency for the next level of service that I want to share with you, and messages that I want to share with you, and exciting things that are coming down the pipeline. And I also think it's really important sometimes for those of us who are service people and healer people to sometimes pull back and take some time for ourselves to be in alignment and be able to truly be a service from a place of power and potency, and also rest too. Some of you who've been following me for a while know that I left California in December of 2020 after 40 years of being there, and now I am super fortunate to call Montana my home. I never thought I'd end up here, but was given a beautiful dream that guided me here in the fall of 2020. So here I am broadcasting to you today. And welcome. If this is the first time that you are hearing my voice and listening to the podcast, feel free to let me know who you are in the comments. I would love to personally welcome you into our intimacy alchemy community. And today's topic is something I am absolutely thrilled to be sharing with you. Ecstatic lovemaking is your birthright. Ecstatic lovemaking is your birthright. Many of you know that I work in the realms of intimacy, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, all the things that come in the partnership journey, from healing to co-creativity and regulation and liberation. And so that means we cover the realms of trauma, of emotional relating and open-heartedness, and all the way up to using relationship as a spiritual path for full-on complete liberation. That is what I am here for. So I want to share with you a little bit about my own story to know that ecstatic lovemaking is my birthright. And it is my hope, intention, and prayer that this message be worthwhile and valuable for you in your own journey. I just want to name that so many of us, and what I hear from so many of my clients, is that there are so many things that can be in the way of really truly embodying on all levels that knowing that ecstatic lovemaking that you desire is your birthright. We are all overcoming massive conditioning, karma, imprints. Imprints are the influences from our lineage that come from in the form of mental imprints, emotional imprints, somatic imprints, political imprints, financial imprints, medical. I think I already said that. There's so many of them that especially get formed up when we are being conceived and so on through the journey of life. So I want to share a little bit about my own journey. And in particular, I'm going to be highlighting how early these things get set up. So one of the things that I talk about often in my work is that the barriers to intimacy whether it's sexual intimacy, emotional intimacy, the intimacy of being able to be safe, to be vulnerable with each other, get formed super early on with those around you. If we are in a primary partnership, we are in a primary relationship. That person that we are with symbolizes a primary, meaning usually significantly and only other. And for all of us, our earliest experiences of being with a primary other are from our earliest caregivers, usually our parents, if not our parents, our aunts and uncles, or the people that raised us. And until just a few years ago, I personally believed that my own barriers to ecstatic lovemaking were formed in some of the, beginning parts of my life around age 5, 6. I had the idea that most of my confusion about beautiful lovemaking got formed in my teenage years when there was a lot of conflict in my home. But since the beginning of my studies into the world of preconception through birth, understanding and foundations, I'm in the middle of a 3-year program that works with that. I've come to see something much more ancient and specific, and I'm going to share this with you so that you can perhaps be inspired to have the curiosity to look at where the origin point of maybe your own barriers to intimacy, and this also includes your intimacy with yourself and your intimacy within. So historically, this is a little bit of my own story. I came from a mother who had several episodes of sexual assault that happened when she was a young girl, super tragic, material that I have tremendous compassion for. And she didn't really start working with it until she was in her mid to late 30s. In fact, she didn't even remember it until then. And when she was pregnant with me, around the 5th month, she discovered that she was having a girl. And unconsciously and unbeknownst to her, but I was able to actually reconstruct this through deep somatic work and process, which is also what I'm facilitating for my clients, was that there was something in my sequence around midway, meaning like before, beginning, middle, and after. We all have various sequences in how we do things. And I think it's important to really look at where our challenges in our sequences actually are. So for me, I always had a little something mid-sequence. I would start out fantastic and amazing, and then somewhere in the middle of the journey, I would feel a little guilty, a little flat. Something was wrong. I did something wrong. Worried if I did something wrong or something wasn't right. And through my inner work, what I discovered is when my mother found out that she was having a girl, unconsciously, all of her ideas and projections about what it meant to be a girl completely got transferred and plastered into me in utero. And the messages that I've been able to deconstruct were, it's not safe to be a girl. Girls will be sexually violated. All the things you could imagine somebody who had unprocessed sexual abuse might say or might feel or might think. Girls need to be turned over to God. Something is wrong. Something is going to go wrong. Girls can't be innocent. So it's so interesting because in the Gene Keys, my core vocation is all about innocence and chaos. And Richard Rudd talks about this and talks about how, this is our innermost wounding. So for a lot of my life, I had a lot of chaos because I didn't feel innocent. And it also speaks to the in utero transmissions that we got from our mothers. So there's lots of ways to access this information and really utilize it to our healing benefit so that we can correct things at the earliest and most ancient of the way that we came into this life. And I'm a big believer that while spiritual work is incredibly important and mindset work is really important, if we don't resolve the somatic imprints that were put into us super early, we won't feel safe, even if we want to, even if we desire to mentally. It's work that needs to really happen to regulate what's in what I call our body field. And so my body field was filled with tons of guilt and shame and worry and fear and anxiety and something is wrong. And so I, for a long time, did not feel that ecstatic lovemaking was my birthright. It makes a lot of sense, right? I couldn't feel that way. And there was a turning point where this really just had such a strong intention to become conscious of what was actually playing out. It's not that I didn't have pleasurable lovemaking. It's not that I felt afraid of lovemaking, but I could feel that the woman that I am didn't have the full switch on of really knowing that it was my birthright. And I really wanted, probably like you do too, to feel that ecstatic lovemaking is your deep and complete and total birthright. And so through the intention work that I kept bringing to the forefront, I eventually saw the origin points of all of what was in the way, the conditioning, the karma that had been repeating and repeating and repeating. And I'm pretty sure that it went beyond just my generation. It was such a struggle to really get through that. But through doing this trauma work and through this very, very, very early imprint work, I was really able to see where that got put in me. And when I did, it was this most amazing turning point. It was like all that feeling of guilt and shame and loss of innocence, I was able to very carefully and appropriately return it to sender, wherever it came from, with tremendous love and tremendous respect and tremendous thanks for the journey that it had taken me on to this. And I was really able to finally become and be, with a capital B and a capital E, the full embodiment of that divine birthright, knowing in my tissues, in my cells, in my power, in my heart, in my sexuality, in my lovemaking, in my mind, in my spirit. It was like such a divine return home. And coupled with that, I was able to lose a bunch of extra body weight that no doubt I had been carrying. Some of the women in my lineage have carried a lot of extra on their bodies, and I believe it's because of all the overwhelm and the trauma that people haven't had support with to deal with. And so now I no longer worry or question whether my desires are anything but my birthright and actually a pure transmission and gift from God and Goddess themselves. And I'm super grateful for that. And in this journey, I just really want to acknowledge and honor that there are millions upon millions of women just like me who have been working out the karma and the conditioning and this sense of like, why isn't divine ecstatic lovemaking flowing for me? Why is that? And if you have that question, my guess is that there is probably something in the body field, something in the ancient fields of your history that has been holding on. And my experience is that even if we are brilliant and talented and genius women, I work with some of the most brilliant, beautiful, bright, heartfelt, magical, and talented women and men and couples. If the somatic layers, which is all very often pre-verbal, aren't attended to, then what happens is that no matter how much you mentally try and how much you mentally muscle your way through wanting ecstatic lovemaking to be your birthright, it's really hard if the foundations are holding a core of unregulated, overwhelming experience, most likely from our ancestors. And if we look down our lineages and ask ourselves, what do I know about the history of women in my lineage being allowed to have the ecstatic lovemaking they desired, embodied to have the ecstatic lovemaking they desired, empowered to have the ecstatic lovemaking they desired, permission from within to have the lovemaking they desire. A lot of women do not have that. And so my invitation for you today is to start to look at all of that. And if there's a way that an extra layer of support or question you have for me, I welcome them. I want millions and millions and millions of women to know that ecstatic lovemaking that they desire, it's your birthright. It is absolutely your birthright. You get to have that. And it can, whatever is in the way of that can absolutely be cleared up. It can be resolved. It's not overnight. I don't want to make any false promises, but it absolutely can be resolved. And then what can birth is your pure, divine, erotic life force energy. You know, it's like there's a difference between neurotic with an N and erotic. It's the same word, except with neurotic, we've got nerves and unregulated overwhelm in the form of your nervous system hijacking and ultimately controlling the show. So that so does not need to be that way, and you're invited to start thinking about it and looking deeply into it. And I would love to hear more about what this brought up for you, and just want you to know that I'm listening always and always welcoming your experience, and super happy that you're here, and super happy that this topic is something that you allowed yourself to find resonance with today. So thank you so much for listening. There will be a lot more coming from me, and I am super, super excited for all that. Have a beautiful day. Your desires for ecstatic lovemaking are pure, are good, are innocent, are from the divine, and you get to have, enjoy, see, hear, taste, and feel every single one of them. Blessings and much love to you. Thank you so much, dear listener, for joining me on the Sex, Love, and Relationship podcast with Joanna and Tara, the Intimacy Alchemists. Did today's episode help make things just a little bit simpler for you and more clear on what's next? If you're moved, I'd love for you to leave us a quick review on iTunes. And if you're ready to this time finally experience the conscious intimacy that creates soul-satisfying sex, love, and closeness that you've been desiring, then visit me at theintimacyalchemist.com or come over to our Facebook group, The Intimacy Alchemy Vortex with Joanna and Tara, the Intimacy Alchemist, where we openly face all the kinds of disconnection, tension, edge, trauma, and vulnerable edges that happen in real relationships that are calling for the transformation, so you can finally savor the sweet intimacy that makes everything in life amazing. Until next time, you're on the right path. You can learn how to navigate the disconnection with more ease and conscious mastery, and have the love and intimacy you're meant to enjoy.